of death game that began in 1988 has claimed a speculated 14,560 lives in total, and will continue to claim many more going forward unless it is stopped. But we of course have only ever gotten the privilege of seeing 470 of these deaths on screen, with 2 of the deaths actually being questionable to say the least. So before the new season drops in just a couple of weeks from now, I want to go through and remind and explain every death that we of course saw in the first season. So without wasting any more of your time, let's begin with the first on-screen death coming from Player 324, in arguably the most popular Squid Game event of all time, the red light green light game. Player 324 made a bet with Player 250 to be the first to make it to the other side, but by rushing and slightly stumbling he of course moved, which of course resulted in his death. Now Player 250 wouldn't be far behind him. After he saw that 324 fell, he went over to gloat just a little bit, but then out of shock by his death, he ran for his life and was shot as a result, before he ever even had a chance of getting away. Now after being covered in Player 250's blood, 306 began to scream and was shot as a result. This then of course made everyone else panic and run around desperately trying to get away. Now in this moment, a chunk of players were subsequently killed during the panic, but due to the mass hysteria and quick camera switches, many of these numbers are impossible to find out. So if I was actually able to grab any of them, you will see them on screen right here. But now following the panic, the game continues, with player 078 being the next to mess up and die, alongside a number that I just really can't make out as of right now. But then right after that, with sheer precision, player 305 was shot in the head as yet another result of him moving during the red light. With the same thing then sadly happening to players 362, 153, 056, 077, 126, 400 flat, 220, 114, 046, 112, 163, 041, and 289. But right then, as our MC, Sung Gyun, is about to fall and likely join the others in death, he is saved by my all-time favourite Squid Game character, Abdul Ali, or player 199. But then, as they make it across the line and the timer finally ends, we of course see that several of the remaining players never made it across the line, which of course now meant that they would all be shot dead as a result of their failure. Now following this, we later see that one of the shot contestants actually managed to live, but the guards then nailed his box shot and likely just sent it into the incinerator like the others. We are then later told by the guards that 245 players were subsequently killed during the red light green light game. They then allowed the remaining contestants to vote if they wanted to leave the game show, but inevitably, even after being allowed to leave, a number of them actually returned later on. But during their time away, Jang Duk-soo, or player 101, stabbed and killed a former gangmate of his when that gang member arranged to have him jumped by a rival gang looking to collect on some sort of debt. Much later, however, as the guards are bringing the contestants back to the island, the police officer Wang Jun-ho choked out guard 029 and threw him overboard into the ocean, where he of course subsequently drowned to death. Now it is never failed that of the 201 that lived through the first game, only 187 actually returned to the island. That's around 93% of the total 201. Now much later, the remaining contestants of course went to the next game, which is arguably one of the hardest games of all time. It's the cookie game. Now this game of course needs no explanation, as I'm sure you've probably seen it somewhere online once before. But during the game we of course get to witness a total of 108 players die as a result of failing to solve the cookie. Of the 108, the players that we actually get to see die are players 369, 209, 061, 413, 182, 123, 338, and 058. We then of course move over and see that 215, 068, 446, 079, and 237 are all shot and killed as a result of failing their cookie as well. But we of course then witness that once the time runs out, all the remaining players were slaughtered like animals. But then sadly, just shortly after the square guard finally revealed his face, No Sang-hun, or player 119, shot himself in the head, as a realization that he was about to die no matter what. The unnamed male guard was then shot in the head by Hwang Hin-ho, aka the frontman, aka the man in the black mask. He was shot because of course he broke the rules of removing his mask in front of the other guards, something which is of course punishable by death. Now with that, it was later announced that a total of 79 players were eliminated from the cookie game, which of course now brings the remaining number of players in the running all the way down to a shocking 108. But shortly after returning, Jang Duk-soo, or player 101, beat player 271 to death over an egg. So now of course we only have 107 players remaining. But then as the lights go out, we of course witness as the strong murders the weak.
Hello you. High energy bills that keep...
With around player 271 to death over an egg. So now of course we only have 107 players remaining. But then as the lights go out, we of course witness as the strong murders the weak. with around 27 players in total being killed off during the nightly raids. During the raids,